I'm Lawrence Holland. I'm with Summit Sealants and Restoration Services. Today we're at the Denver Basilica Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception. It's located obviously in Denver downtown off of Colfax and Logan.
This cathedral is approximately 110 years old. It is the cathedral of the Archdiocese of Denver, so it is the mother church, if you will, of the diocese.
The Cathedral of Immaculate Conception was started groundbreaking, I believe it was in 1906 is when the cornerstone was laid. It was completed in 1912. There were approximately 110 stonemasons working on the project simultaneously at that time. One of the features of the Basilica of Immaculate Conception is it holds the largest collection of stained glass in one building in the whole nation. This particular project started in March of 2016 when a stone element fell off the south facade.
So we got a call that a stone had landed on the sidewalk of Colfax, right next to a vagrant's head. The church called and wanted to make sure that that no other stones would fall.
But through some investigation on our behalf, we learned that we had some elements that were beginning to have some cracks in them, and we wanted to be proactive and address those and get them either repaired or replaced before a catastrophic failure would occur.
So as we went out to take a look at the specific location where that stone fell, we could see a few other locations that had cracking and fissures in the natural stone, which is where when we brought it up to the church and we said, hey, that there's the potential that there's a significant amount of these areas, but there's no way for us to actually tell unless we do a proper investigation.
With the team as a whole, we had to brainstorm, and there was a lot of bouncing back and forth on discussion of the safest way to access these spires. And I do not believe this has ever been done before in the US, let alone maybe the world. But what we did is we hooked up arms to the landing gear of a drone, and we created a hula hoop basically with some very strong rope. We flew the drone up to the top and we centered the hula hoop, and we actually had the drone drop the hoop over the top. We had a leader line coming down to this level here, and then we threaded another very skinny rope up through it. That way, when I came out of this initial top bell tower, I always had protection above me. And I was really proud and excited of my team to be able to come up with this idea. It went off without a hitch.
I thought it was a brilliant idea. There was a lot of dynamics that we immediately had to look at, one being in the city, two being next to Colfax. So when they had brought the idea of the drones and climbing this up, it seemed like a brilliant idea and the best means of access for that facade.
Climbing these finial features here to the top, there was 18 of them. I counted them the whole way so that I knew how many was left. Although it's not dead vertical, it sure does seem like it when you're up there.
It is a lot steeper than the pictures actually give it justice.
It's pretty spectacular looking down on the State Capitol building and some of the other monarch buildings of that area.
Exhilarating. The feeling of hanging on a rope on the exterior of that was phenomenal.
A little nervous at times, but luckily with the system that we put in place, I did feel safe the whole time. The only thing was knowing that I was climbing on the features that we were kind of hired to inspect to find out if they were structurally sound. Urban industrial access is so much different than kind of some of my background of climbing in the mountains, because we were directly over Colfax Boulevard, the busiest street in Denver. While I was climbing, there was a motorcycle accident down below and sirens, and it was kind of a lot more difficult to stay focused. It couldn't have worked out any better. It went off without a hitch. It was done very safely, and we were able to rig both spires in about 6 hours.
We found a lot of head and bed joints completely failed. We do have some deterioration of the actual block itself. We've seen scaling and delamination in the sandstone. Looks like there was patches done on this years ago. A lot of those patches are starting to come out. We're not seeing a lot of failure in the actual clusters themselves, at least on this particular face right here.
Once we did our investigation, realized that there were some areas that were in dire need of repair, we decided to go straight forward with scaffolding.
Shut down all sidewalks around the building itself, built overhead canopy protection to protect the public, and then went into the design of the scaffolding itself. The scaffolding is 29 levels high. Debris netting is installed to collect and contain any falling debris. We want to control it.
It's a very unique scaffolding job, having to go around all of the features and in between the towers.
The building is so old that you no longer can or never have been able to structurally load the roofs or the balconies around the structure itself.
Probably one of the more interesting investigations that we needed to make was not up under the structure, but actually the ground that needed to support all that structure, the scaffolding, and that we once again retained some specialists in the engineering field that checked out as to whether the natural ground could support 250 feet of scaffolding, and it was found that no, it couldn't. We had to dig out some ground and pour some concrete. It required 2 steel beams 80 feet long on 2 shoring towers on the east and west elevations. Those shoring towers are only 4 foot by 2 foot, and their intended loads are 39,000 pounds per shoring tower. There's only approximately an inch between that Celtic cross and that steel beam that the scaffolding resides on.
Yeah, it's basically a big jungle gym, and so it's been an absolute feat trying to keep people off of the scaffolding. You know, from people wanting to sleep at the very top of the scaffolding, 200 feet in the air, to hey, check it out, I can just climb the exterior of this scaffolding, has been insanely difficult. You know, public safety and trying to get the plywood in different ways to where it's impossible for them to climb is almost impossible. We've had people destroying our scaffolding and beating it up. We've had car accidents hitting the Jersey barriers that are there to prevent vehicles from hitting the scaffolding. It is a feat just trying to keep people off and or keep the scaffolding safe.
We're now in the stages of, we've disassembled the top spires. Both spires have a connecting rod, an iron rod that connects the top 15 feet of the spire. That rod is made out of mild iron from 1906. That iron over time has corroded, and when iron corrodes, it grows in size. If there's no room for that rust to grow and that corrosion to grow, it pushes on the forces around it, which are the stone elements in the mortars. Because of that, has caused that cracking and other failures within the stone to occur, not just in the stone, but also in the mortar. These are Dutchman repairs. So the host stone had damage, so we cut out the bad portion of the stone, cut a new section, and then graft it back into place. The tops of these crockets, they get a new coating to help slow down that freeze-thaw cycling damage that we see. A lot of these lobes here and here are been compromised because of water and ice sitting on the tops. By providing a barrier or a roof over these, it'll slow the freeze-thaw process down and in turn better life, service life of the stone itself. David is installing a fluted section of Dutchman right here. It came from a section that we had turned on at the fabrication shop, and then now he's marrying that up to join. And when he's done, it will be just a continuous piece of stone up to the bottom of the next crocket. Mortars have been reinstalled. You can see by these joints here, the color is really perfectly matched. So that's why we're innovative. We're at the cutting edge of technology. All the tools we have are the latest and the greatest tools. All the means and methods we have have been tried and true. We have been through this process. We know how to do this, and we can save a tremendous amount of money in the approach that we're taking because of our history. Well, after about a year and a half of ongoing work at the Cathedral of Immaculate Conception downtown in Denver, we are now at grade. So we've reached the bottom of it. It took us, like I said, about a year and a half to complete all the restoration work on the limestone. So now we're at grade. We are manufacturing, carving new stones as we proceed down at the grade, and we're also anticipating scaffold to be down by the end of the month. June 30th is our goal, is to be 100% done with the spires. Stone has arrived for a different phase of that same project, so once we are complete with the spires, we're going to transfer straight over to the nave of the church and continue working on there, which will carry us out close to the end of the year. So at this point, it looks like the cathedral project is going to run to about a 2.5-year project based off of the first investigation of doing the facade inspections through the construction build of the scaffolding, as well as all the restoration on the project.